The envelope had no stamp. It had no return address. It was sealed with dark red wax. But the most impossible part was the name written on the front. It was the name of a man who had been dead for 10 years. Elias sat at his wooden desk and stared at the paper. The rain beat against the window of his small bookshop. The town of Oakhaven was quiet. It was a place where nothing exciting ever happened. People came to his shop to buy old books. They came to escape the damp coastal weather. Elias liked the quiet. He liked fixing broken things. He spent his days gluing torn pages and pressing wrinkled covers. He was a man who lived in the past. But this letter was from the past, or so he thought. The name on the envelope was Arthur Pendleton. Arthur had been Elias's best friend. They had grown up together in Oakhaven. They had learned to ride bikes on the same dirt roads. They had fished from the same wooden pier. 10 years ago, Arthur had gone out on his small sailboat. A terrible storm had rolled in from the ocean. The boat was found empty the next morning. Arthur was never seen again. The town held a memorial service. They built a small stone bench by the harbor in his memory. Elias had mourned his friend for years. He had accepted that Arthur was gone. Yet, here was his name, written in fresh black ink. Elias picked up a small silver knife. His hand shook slightly. He slid the blade under the red wax seal. The wax cracked and fell away. He pulled out a single piece of thick yellow paper. He unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was messy and rushed. It was definitely Arthur's handwriting. Elias would recognize those sharp letters anywhere. The letter contained only 3 sentences. I did not drown in the storm. They are looking for the hidden journal. Trust no one who lives in the blue house. Elias read the words again, and then a third time. His heart beat faster in his chest. Arthur was alive. He had faked his own death. But why? And what was this hidden journal? The blue house was the old mansion at the end of Cliff Road. It had been empty for 20 years. It belonged to Arthur's family before they moved away. Elias looked out the window. The rain was falling harder now. The streets were empty. He felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. For 10 years, he had felt lost. He had felt like a part of his soul had washed away in the ocean. Now, a door had suddenly opened. He could not ignore it. He had to know the truth. He stood up and put on his heavy wool coat. He grabbed a large flashlight and a ring of old keys. He locked the front door of his bookshop. He pulled his hat down low to block the rain. He began to walk toward Cliff Road. The walk took 20 minutes. The wind blew hard off the ocean. It carried the smell of salt and wet pine trees. Elias kept his head down. He did not want anyone to see him. If Arthur was in danger, Elias had to be careful. The letter said to trust no one in the blue house. That meant someone might be watching the house right now. When he reached the end of the road, he saw the blue house. It was a large, ugly building. The paint was peeling. The windows were dark and dirty. The garden was overgrown with thick weeds and tall grass. It looked like a place where ghosts lived. Elias stopped behind a large oak tree. He watched the house for a long time. He did not see any movement. He did not see any lights. He took a deep breath and walked up the stone path to the front door. The front door was locked with a heavy iron padlock. Elias tried his keys. None of them fit. He walked around the side of the house. He found a small window in the back. The glass was cracked. He pushed it gently. The window slid open with a loud squeak. Elias winced. He listened for any sound from inside. There was only the sound of the wind. He climbed through the window and dropped onto the wooden floor. The inside of the house smelled like old dust and damp wood. It was very dark. Elias turned on his flashlight. The beam of light cut through the darkness. It revealed empty rooms, broken chairs, and walls covered in peeling wallpaper. He remembered the letter. Arthur said they were looking for a hidden journal. Arthur loved hiding things when they were children. They used to bury time capsules in the woods. Arthur always liked hidden spaces. Elias walked into the main living room. There was a large stone fireplace. The stones were black with soot. Elias examined the fireplace. He tapped the stones with his knuckles. Most of them made a solid, dull sound. But one stone near the bottom made a hollow sound. Elias smiled. He pulled a small metal tool from his pocket. He wedged it into the mortar around the stone. He pushed hard. The stone popped out and fell to the floor with a heavy thud. Behind the stone was a dark hole. Elias reached his hand inside. His fingers touched cold metal. He pulled out a small, square metal box. It was locked, but the latch was broken. He opened it easily. Inside the box was a small leather book. It was the journal. Suddenly, Elias heard a noise. It was the sound of footsteps on the front porch. Heavy, slow footsteps. Someone had arrived. Elias turned off his flashlight. The room plunged into total darkness. He held his breath. He heard the front door being forced open. The wood splintered with a loud crack. Heavy boots stepped into the hallway. Elias could hear the person breathing. It was a man, and he was not alone. There was a second set of footsteps. Elias knew he could not fight them. He was just a book restorer. He was not a fighter. He had to escape. He remembered the back window. He moved slowly through the dark house. He kept his hand on the wall to guide him. He stepped carefully to avoid the broken floorboards. He reached the back room. He climbed back out the window. He dropped into the wet grass outside. He did not stand up right away. He listened. He heard the men moving around inside the house. They were shouting quietly. They were looking for the journal. Elias stood up and ran. He ran through the tall weeds. He ran down the stone path. He did not stop until he reached the main road. He walked quickly back to his shop. His heart was pounding in his ears. He was wet, cold, and terrified. But he had the journal. Back in his shop, Elias locked the door. He pulled the blinds down. He turned on all the lights. He sat at his desk and placed the leather journal in front of him. He opened it carefully. The pages were filled with writing. But it was not normal writing. It was a code. It looked like a random list of numbers and letters. Elias sighed. Arthur always loved puzzles. He used to send Elias coded messages in their school notebooks. Elias looked closely at the code. He recognized the pattern. It was a book cipher. Arthur had used it before. The numbers referred to page numbers, word numbers, and letter positions in a specific book. Elias looked at the first line of the code. It had a small drawing of a dictionary at the top. Elias stood up and walked to his reference shelf. He pulled down a large, old dictionary. It was the exact same edition Arthur used to use. He carried it back to the desk. He opened the journal and began to decode the first message. It took him an hour. His eyes hurt from the small print. But finally, the hidden words formed a sentence. The lighthouse holds the final key. The light does not shine for ships. It shines for the truth. Go at midnight. Elias looked at the clock on the wall. It was 8 o'clock. He had 4 hours. He felt a deep sense of purpose. He was no longer just a lonely man fixing old books. He was solving a mystery. He was helping his friend. He spent the next few hours preparing. He packed a bag with warm clothes, a thermos of hot tea, and a first aid kit. He ate a simple dinner of bread and cheese. He did not feel hungry. His mind was focused entirely on the old lighthouse. The Oakhaven Lighthouse stood at the very edge of the rocky point. It was built 100 years ago to guide ships away from the sharp reefs. But the ocean currents had changed. The lighthouse was no longer needed. It had been turned off and closed to the public 10 years ago, the same year Arthur disappeared. At 11:30, Elias put on his coat. He stepped out into the night. The rain had stopped, but a thick fog had rolled in from the sea. The streetlights looked like blurry yellow halos in the mist. Elias walked down the coastal path. The wind was cold and bit at his face. The sound of the waves crashing against the rocks was loud and rhythmic. As he walked, Elias thought about his life. He realized how much he had hidden away since Arthur died. He had stopped going to town gatherings. He had stopped talking to new people. He had let his grief build a wall around him. Arthur's letter had broken that wall. It reminded him that life was full of surprises. It reminded him that he was still alive and he needed to live. He reached the base of the lighthouse at midnight. The tall stone tower reached up into the fog. It looked like a giant finger pointing at the sky. The heavy wooden door at the base was locked with a thick iron chain. Elias walked around the base. He remembered a trick Arthur had told him years ago. Arthur said he kept a spare key for the lighthouse hidden nearby, just in case he wanted to go up and stargaze. Elias searched the ground near the large rocks. He moved a few loose stones. Finally, his fingers touched a small metal object. It was a rusty brass key. He walked back to the door and unlocked the chain. It fell to the ground with a heavy clatter. Elias pushed the door open. It smelled like damp stone and old oil. He turned on his flashlight and began to climb the spiral iron stairs. The climb was exhausting. There were over 200 steps. His legs burned. His breath echoed in the narrow tower. But he did not stop. He climbed higher and higher. The wind howled outside the thick stone walls. Finally, he reached the top room. This was the lantern room. It was a circular space with large glass windows looking out over the dark ocean. In the center of the room was the old brass lamp mechanism, but there was no light. Elias walked into the room. He looked around. There was no journal here. There was no hidden key. There was only a small wooden table. On the table sat an old cassette tape recorder. Next to it was a single cassette tape. Elias walked over to the table. He picked up the tape recorder. It was battery-operated. He pressed the play button. The tape hissed for a moment. Then, a voice spoke. Elias recognized the voice immediately. It was Mayor Thomas. Mayor Thomas was a powerful man in Oak Haven. He was the one who had organized the search for Arthur 10 years ago. He was the one who had given the speech at the memorial. His voice was smooth and confident. The voice on the tape said, "Arthur was a foolish man. He dug too deep into the town's history. He found the old smuggling maps in the cave. He found out that the new harbor development was built on stolen land. He was going to take his proof to the state police. I could not let him do that. The development deal was worth millions. I took his boat out to sea. I let the storm do the rest. No one would ever know. If you are listening to this, Elias, you have made a very big mistake." Elias felt a cold chill run down his spine. The mayor was a murderer. He had killed Arthur to protect his illegal business deal. Elias felt sick. He reached out to stop the tape, but the tape kept playing. The hissing sound returned. Then, a new voice spoke. Elias gasped. It was Arthur's voice. It sounded older and a bit weaker, but it was definitely Arthur. Arthur's voice said, "Elias, my old friend. If you are hearing this, then Thomas has finally confessed. He is a proud man, but he is also a stupid man. He loves to brag about his victories. I knew he would record his confession. I just needed him to feel safe enough to do it." Elias leaned closer to the speaker. His heart was beating so fast it hurt. Arthur continued, "I am not dead, Elias. I faked my death to escape him. Thomas is dangerous. He has friends in the local police. I knew I could not go to the town authorities. I had to hide. I have been living in the old sea caves down the coast. I sent you the letter because I knew you would follow the clues. I knew you would find the journal, and I knew you would come to the lighthouse. I needed you to get this tape. Thomas thinks he is alone in the lighthouse right now. He does not know you are here. But I do. Look out the window, Elias. Look down at the beach." Elias turned away from the table. He walked to the large glass window. He wiped the condensation away with his sleeve. He looked down at the rocky beach below the lighthouse. The fog was clearing slightly. The moon was shining through the clouds. Standing on the beach, looking up at the lighthouse, was an old man. He wore a heavy yellow raincoat. He had a long white beard. He was holding a walking stick. It was Arthur. He was alive. He was really alive. Tears filled Elias's eyes. He pressed his hand against the cold glass. He had spent 10 years mourning his friend. He had thought the ocean had taken him, but Arthur had survived. He had been hiding in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike back. Elias turned off the tape recorder. He grabbed the tape and put it in his pocket. He ran out of the lantern room. He ran down the spiral stairs. He did not care about the noise. He practically flew down the iron steps. His legs were tired, but his spirit was soaring. He burst out the heavy wooden door. He ran down the stone path to the beach. The wind whipped his coat around him. He reached the bottom and saw Arthur standing by the water's edge. Arthur turned around. His face was lined with deep wrinkles. His eyes were bright and full of life. He smiled. It was the same warm smile Elias remembered from their childhood. Elias stopped a few feet away. He did not know what to say. His throat was tight. Arthur stepped forward and opened his arms. Elias stepped into the hug. They held each other tightly. They were two old men standing on a cold beach, but they felt like boys again. "You got the tape," Arthur said. His voice was raspy from the cold. "I got it," Elias said. He pulled back and looked at his friend. "I cannot believe you are here. I thought you were gone." "I had to make it look real," Arthur said. "Thomas would have killed me for real if I just ran away. I had to make him think the sea took me. Then I could hide and gather my strength. I have been watching him for 10 years, waiting for him to slip up, waiting for him to talk to himself. I knew he kept a recorder in his office. I just needed someone to plant it in his lighthouse." "You used me as bait," Elias said. He smiled. "I used you as my best friend," Arthur corrected him. "I knew you were the only one who would understand the clues. I knew you were the only one who would not give up." They stood on the beach for a moment, letting the reality sink in. Then, Elias remembered the tape in his pocket. "We need to take this to the police," Elias said. "Not the local police," Arthur said quickly. "Thomas owns them. We need to take it to the state police in the city. They are far away from his influence." Elias nodded. He agreed completely. They walked back up the path together. They walked to Elias's small car parked near the bookshop. They got in and drove out of Oakhaven. They drove through the night, heading toward the city. The next morning, the sun was shining brightly. The storm had completely passed. Elias and Arthur sat in the waiting room of the state police headquarters. They had handed the tape to a senior detective. The detective had listened to it right there in the office. His face had turned pale. He had immediately called for a tactical team. By noon, the news broke. Mayor Thomas was arrested at his home. He was charged with murder, fraud, and corruption. The town of Oakhaven was in shock. The development deal was canceled. The stolen land was returned to the original owners. The town was finally free of the dark secret it had carried for a decade. Elias and Arthur drove back to Oakhaven in the afternoon. The town looked different to Elias. It looked brighter. The heavy weight that had hung over the streets for 10 years was gone. They went to Elias's bookshop. Elias made a pot of hot tea. They sat at the small table by the window. The afternoon light poured in, making the dust motes dance in the air. "So what happens now?" Elias asked. He handed a cup of tea to Arthur. Arthur took a sip and smiled. "Now I get to live. I have 10 years of life to catch up on. I think I will start by helping you fix these old books. My hands are not as steady as they used to be, but I can still glue a page." Elias laughed. It was a loud, happy sound. He had not laughed like that in a very long time. "I would like that," Elias said. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Elias looked at his friend. He looked at the old books on the shelves. He thought about the journey he had been on. He had started as a lonely man, hiding from the world. He had ended as a man who had saved his friend and his town. He realized that the past is not always a closed door. Sometimes, it is just a hidden room waiting to be opened. You just need the courage to look for the key. Arthur finished his tea and stood up. He walked over to the shelf and pulled out a torn book. He looked at the broken spine and shook his head. "This one needs a lot of work," Arthur said. "We have time," Elias replied. Elias looked out the window at the quiet street. He thought about the letter that had started it all. It was just a piece of paper with some ink on it. But it had changed everything. It had brought his friend back from the dead. It had brought justice to the town. It had brought life back to his own heart. He smiled and picked up his tools. Some secrets are buried in the dark, but the truth will always find the light.